What I really like about conceptualizing things as a whole unit is that, okay, if I want them to use Flipgrid at the end, I should find a way to spiral that skill in and have materials for students at every level. Those kids who are racing through things, finish, what do I do next, teacher? And then they go off and cause trouble. And then the kids who are causing trouble because they're like, oh, what are we doing? Be able to meet more kids where they are. And I'm just really excited to explore what this teaching framework Hello, all those beautiful faces. How we doing out there? Stephanie checking in with another episode of Class Disruption, a YouTube channel and podcast to inspire teachers to disrupt the education market by taking ownership of their classrooms and schools. Man, it's winter break. I'm hanging out. I got my sweatpants on. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's. We gonna get this thing off to a great start, and I'm super excited to share with you what I'm doing in my next unit. So in this video, I'm going to share with you both my lesson unit development process, my lesson making process, and also I'm taking a new approach called blended learning. And it's actually, before we get into it, let me share with you how I fell into this idea. It was the beginning of the month, right? Today's December 29th, so it was back a little over, it was 24 days ago. It was on December 5th. I was tweeting out, Twitter, you tweet out in the moment, how you feeling, what's going on. So I was in there a little bit in my feelings about my lesson. And let's see, where are those tweets at? I said, I love the idea of this lesson. I just need to work things out a bit. And then a little bit later, I said, I had the overall idea. I've been piecing it together one lesson at a time, but next year I'll have all the pieces going into the lesson so I can focus on those little aspects that make it all gel together. And then here's the tweet where Kareem reached out. I said, I just always feel so rushed. How can I do authentic learning in 45 minutes a day for 20 days and then move on to the next topic? And so in response, he says that this is a great question, a tough issue. And he found it impossible to chunk lessons in arbitrary timeframes, right? 45 minutes. It's like, who chose that? And that didn't necessarily work for all students. We built our blended self-paced mastery-based instructional model to address this very issue. And then he linked an article that he wrote, and so I was checking out his article. He actually wrote a couple different articles here. You can see the 5-step guide, answers to your questions. And so I read this one, but I wanted to look at this one right now because it has some good, quick information. So again, this gives a nice summary of what blended learning is. It replaces those lecture-based one-size-fits-all teaching with student-centered technology-enhanced instruction that allows students to learn at their own pace, mastering content and skills as they go. And it seems like every teacher's dream, right? Differentiated learning, kids go at their own pace, and you can see they break it down a little bit more here about the self-pacing. So they break their units into must do, must do, should do, aspire to do. So, you really have those kids at all areas, and it allows you to hone in and really give and have materials for students at every level. Those kids who are racing through things, finish, what do I do next, teacher? And then they go off and cause trouble. And then the kids who are causing trouble because they're like, oh, what are we doing? And so that's just what I want to do. I want to be able to meet more kids where they are. And I'm just really excited to explore what this teaching framework has to offer. So come along with me on this journey. Okay, so here we are, my lesson planning palette. Now, I don't usually lesson plan like this, but for the purpose of the video, instead of either being on just a blank line piece of paper or a blank document, I'm doing it on the whiteboard so you guys can see. So of course, I'm going to start. This is Unit 3 for me, and it is imperialism. And just like if you're planning a single lesson, a whole unit, a whole scope and sequence, whatever it is, I'm always going to start with, what do I want? Where do I want the kids to go? What's the objective here? And so for this, what I want the kids to be able to do is I want them to be able to write a full 5-paragraph essay for the Regents Enduring Issues essay. So it's a 5-paragraph Enduring Issues essay. And so, can't spell, can experience what my kids experience in the class. I'm skipping letters all the time on the whiteboard. So this is for New York State. This is a specific type of essay that the kids need to be able to write for the Regents, to pass the Regents, and those essay scores, if you know anything about how they do the conversions, they go whoop. They give you so many points. If you don't do well in the other parts and you write a killer essay, you can pass this exam. That's why the essay is so important. So that's what I want. You know, we've been writing single paragraphs about enduring issues, and now I want to bump that up. Teach them how to do the intro, teach them how to do the conclusion, and then, of course, linking those 3 body paragraphs together. So now I'm just going to start kind of like brainstorming, well, what would be the different pieces that would get them there? It doesn't necessarily need to be in any order, but what do I know that they definitely need for this? I know that they're definitely going to need some type of like vocab, the basic vocab. I know that they're going to need some sort of big picture overview. What is imperialism? Where was it? Who was the people leading the imperialism? Who was on the receiving end of imperialism? So I'm just going to call this like a big picture or like an overview. And then now I got to think about, okay, now that they have some of the content, the information, what are the skills that's going to get them to doing this essay writing? So I know the first thing that they need to be able to do is they need to be able to look at a set of documents, analyze those documents, and so, okay, what is an enduring issue that is significant in at least 3 of these documents? And they have to identify that one enduring issue that would be common across all of those 3 things. So if it's power, they have to show me power, the significance of power in 3 of the documents. If it's geography, you need to show me how geography impacted people in 3 of those documents, and so on. So that's going to be one thing I definitely know that they're going to need to do is analyze docs. And what they need to be able to do is they need to tell me like, hey, what's the main idea of that document? Contextualize it for me, okay? Because most of these documents that they'll see on the Regents, it's not going to tell you necessarily where it's taking place or what the big event is that's going on. You're going to have to know, okay, if there's a snake wrapped around a guy, I'll throw up the picture here so you guys can see. This is like a pretty common Regents document. But there's like a snake wrapped around a guy, he's a king, and it talks about rubber. So you need to know that that has to do with King Leopold coming down, imperializing the Congo, and extracting the rubber. You have to fill in those blanks. So we're going to call that like our 5 W's or context. And then they're going to have to be able to identify enduring issues. And we're going to call those EIs. And I want them to give me at least 3 per document. This way that they'll have a sufficient number of choices when they're getting to the end. All right, so they're going to have to analyze the documents and do these 3 things. And then once they've analyzed the documents, then they've got to outline their essay. And so in my school, we use the Writing Revolution, great writing program, highly suggested, check it out. I'll throw a link in the description. So we use the Writing Revolution, and what we call outlines for an essay is a multiple paragraph outline, or an MPO. And that's just a common language that we have across our whole school from every class. I mean, typically they're not writing essays in science or math, but they still will use that language. And then in English and social studies, we're the real essay writing classes. And so boom, MPO. And so they need to be able to learn how to really create that MPO. Well, I think for this one actually, because it's their first time, I'm going to provide them with the actual MPO, and they're just going to have to fill it out. So they're going to need to be able to create that intro, right? I need to teach them how to do the intro. We've never talked about that before. So that'll be one thing, the intro. And again, we have a common language for that. It's called GST. So that's a general statement, a specific statement, and your thesis statement. So I'm going to have to teach them that. And then they know how to do single paragraph outlines. So they know how to outline one paragraph, and I just need to teach them how to take that single paragraph and then move it into the MPO format. It's slightly different, but this should be quick. They should be able to fill in their paragraphs. So outline paragraphs, and then they're gonna need to finally do that conclusion, and that, like the intro, has its format, and it's just the opposite: thesis, specific, general. And we do have some specific ways that we use these in the social or in the global essay to satisfy the regents, what the regents ask for, but we still use that same common language. So that's what they need to know for the MP, for the outline part. And then of course they need to write the actual thing. So right. And I really would like for them to not only write, but I want them to write. I want them to like conference with me. And I want them to revise. Right? I really want them to have that feeling of what does it mean, or what does it feel like to write a dope essay, right? And that's pretty much it. That's going to take us to the end of our unit. Usually for most of my units, I like to do like the full, what was I saying? Like on the summative exam, they would have the Regents style multiple choice. We would do some short answer questions, and then we would do some sort of writing piece at the end. But because this is our first time doing writing, I really just want to use all of our time to focus on this process and really have an authentic experience at it, and not be like, did you do your multiple choice? Did you do this? I really want to focus on this stuff right here, and then we'll bring it back next unit. Like when we're doing decolonization, then I'm going to bring back in all of those multiple choice pieces, those short answer pieces that are so necessary. But because this is what I'm trying to do in this, I really want that to be an authentic experience. I'm just going to laser focus in on that for this unit. And I really find that the more that I laser focus in on things, that again, the easier it is to get done, the more authentic the experience is, because we're not trying to do 5 million different things. And then I can spiral back around to it next unit, and the kids are like, oh, I see what you did there, miss. And I'm like, yeah, see what I did, right? So boom, this is kind of phase one. I just get a big picture of what everything's going to look like. And now I'm going to start honing in more on the actual lessons that I'm going to make. And also I need to look at it in context of the calendar of my school. So I'm going to go ahead and get some of those things together, and then we're going to move on to that next phase of this lesson planning. All right, so we're back. So I was just looking at some things, doing some thinking, and I realized that I really don't have a lot of time for this unit. I have 12 days because we actually started our last marking period of the semester before Christmas break, but I wasn't trying to start anything new and have this stop-start. So we did kind of a 1 week study skills unit focused on nationalism, and now we're getting into this. So I really don't have a lot of time for this unit, and it's actually a shorter marking period than our other ones. So I only have 12 days, and I'm going to be absent one day. I have to take a personal day for something, so that goes down to only 11 days. So what I was thinking was, the first day I would introduce things. We would do a vocab lesson. Then I would do this big picture overview, because this is going to be on Friday, 1/5, I think it is. 1/3. And then this will be their homework over the weekend. And then I'll do some type of warm-up, check-in. And then I'm going to make so this 5 documents, I'm going to do, you know how I said it should be that must do, should do, and then there was that third category. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do 3 must do. I'm going to do 4 should. I'm going to do 5 reach, whatever they call that one. And then, so that will be 1 lesson and 1 homework. So that's 1. So that'll be day 2 plus homework. And then, boom, boom, boom. And then I'm going to do a day. I think it should probably be 1 day on the, I'm going to do a day on the intro. So that would actually be 3. Let's see. Boom, they do their homework. Yes, I'm going to do a day on the intro. So that would be 1, 2, 3 plus a homework. Then we're going to do outline. Boom, this is going to take 1 day. So if that would be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, we got to do the outlines. Got to only be boom. And if they need to finish, they can finish like that. And then conclusion, that will be another day. And then the writing, we'll do a day of writing. Probably 6, this will be 6 and 7, this will be like 7 and 8, and then this will be a 9, and this will be like 9 and 10. So that's what I do next. I kind of go through, I talk things out, I think about it, and then I think about, okay, this is going to be a lesson, 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 and so that brings me up to 10 days. I have a 11 days, so I got an extra 1. I like to leave that, give me some wiggle room. Maybe I can have a guest teacher in. But so now from here, I'm going to start honing in and developing those actual lessons. So the first thing I'm going to do is this vocab lesson and think about this overview lesson and how I'm going to get those going. All right, so once I think about that, I'm going to bring you guys back in and we'll keep this going. Okay, and we're back, and you can see I got my hair up. I mean, it's been a while. I had to go out, go get my son. I started doing some lesson planning, but I really actually always like to take that time between when I first conceive of the ideas and when I actually really start digging in, making my syllabus, start planning, because I do a lot of conceptualizing and visualizing, especially when I'm in the car. I kind of see over my dashboard, you know, or on my windshield. Don't worry, I'm safe. And I just use that time to really process things and visualize how I see them being implemented. And I actually thought of 2 things that I left out in my planning. So the first thing is I've been wanting to use Flipgrid. Flipgrid is a resource where kids can record short videos of themselves, and I really want to do this to support the writing, because I found that, you know, the kids do the writing, but they're not actually saying it out loud and seeing if it makes sense. So I want them to utilize Flipgrid to read their writing, hear what it sounds like, and make those corrections to make their sentences flow better. And then secondly, I wanted to create a progress board to keep in the class. So every day when the kids come in, they can move their marker to which stage of the writing process in our writing workshop that they're in. So those are just 2 more elements that I came up with. And right now what I'm actually going to do, or the other piece that I actually thought of was, instead of doing this all in one video, I'm going to make this a several part series. So in this video, we're going to wrap up by me sharing you with the final unit plan in my syllabus that I came up with. And then moving forward, I'll make a video for every few lessons showing you how I actually get in, design those blended learning units on the computer, and how I'm planning to implement them in terms of the actual lesson plans that I developed. So give you more insight into my lesson planning process. All right, so for right now, let's go ahead and check out the syllabus that I put together based on the ideas that I drew up on the whiteboard. So right here's my Google Drive. I keep everything. You can see I have folders for everything here, and right now we're in the imperialism folder. And what I typically do is I'll make a folder for every single one of my lessons. Right now, I've only gotten things started, so I just have the one folder in there, and I have my unit syllabus. So here is, and this is the format that I use for all my worksheets. I have this green line across the top, that's my school colors, and then a similar kind of heading, and the same font and style throughout all my worksheets. So this is the syllabus that I've been using. I refined the how it looks a little bit, but more or less since the beginning of the year, this is what I've been using. So you can see we go back on Thursday, and the kids are going to start out with that classwork number 1, which was if you remember, it was the vocab lesson. And so, boom, right here, Intro to European Imperialism. And then on day 2, that's when I'm going to bring that Flipgrid in. So even though I'm not planning to use that later on, what I really like about conceptualizing things as a whole unit is that, okay, if I want them to use Flipgrid at the end, I should find a way to spiral that skill in and introduce it before we get there. So class number 2 is really going to be all about, again, using that vocab, getting that big picture of what imperialism is, but also introducing to them how to use Flipgrid. And then over the weekend, they're going to do a 10-minute history video on Edpuzzle. Again, just giving them that big picture. So now in 3 different ways, through vocab, through Flipgrid, and now through this overview video, 10-minute history video on YouTube that they're going to do through Edpuzzle, they'll get that information. So I always like to give multiple opportunities. And then even within those, again, remember we said the blended learning calls for having that must do, should do, and those reach assignments. So I'm trying to build that into each one of those, and you'll see more of that when I get into the actual planning of the lessons. Right? And then to hold them accountable for doing their homework and, doing those assignments Thursday, Friday. On Monday, they're going to have a quiz. It's going to be open notes, and just really to make sure that they have that basic big picture, the causes, the effects, and the geographic locations and major events in those locations of imperialism. And then right after the quiz, it's not going to be too long, 5-10 minutes. We're going to get into the writing workshop starting right away, because I told you I don't have many class periods to get this done, but I want it to be like an authentic and not rushed experience. So we're just going to get right into the writing. And so these workshop ones, this is where I'm going to take what I would typically do as a lecture in front of the class, and I'm going to create 5 to 7 minute videos modeling and giving guided practice to those skills. So that's going to be for 1, 2, 3, and then 3 has several steps, right? The MPO, I broke that down into a few steps. And so that's going to be that whole week. And at the end of the week, I'm going to have them do a self-assessment to see where they are, to decide what they need to do for homework over the weekend. And they have to get all the must-do aspects of those assignments done by Monday. And we're going to have a quiz, and all that quiz is going to be is just, did you do these assignments? And they're going to get points for that. Because that's where they should be at that point. And then we're going to get into the actual writing portion. Now that they have all the information, they have it organized. Okay, start writing your first draft. Some kids may have already started last week. Some kids may just be starting today, but definitely that's the whole point of having this quiz, is to hold them accountable for all that information so that they can start writing on Monday. Because by the end of the week, I want them to at least have gone through that first draft and revision process one time with me. Right? So you can see just throughout the week, we're right here, the record and revise, that's where we're going to bring in Flipgrid. So once they have their first draft, they're going to go on to Flipgrid, and they're going to read out what they wrote. And they themselves are going to hear it and make revisions. And then also, I believe, I don't have this exactly figured out, but my thinking is that they're going to have to coordinate with at least one classmate to listen to each other's and give responses on or feedback based on their first draft. And then, like I said, one of my goals is to actually conference one-to-one, and if that's not possible, at least in very small groups with all the students, so that we can have that conversation and I can really give them that in-person feedback. Because again, the computer's not meant to replace me, it's meant to make it so that I can use my time more meaningfully, and kids can kind of move along, and then I can very intentionally say, okay, I need to be here for this reason, doing this task, looking for this thing. All right, and then you can see again, the rest of the week is just going to be finishing off those conferencing, final drafts, depending on where the kids are at. And of course, if a kid finishes their final draft, that's just the must do. I'm going to have something for them to take it further, to do another round of revision and correction, or possibly writing a whole new essay based on a new set of documents, depending on how much time they have. And then finally, we're going to end off with that self-assessment. They're going to grade their own, they're going to grade a friend's, and just really go through that checklist and make sure that they've done everything in the process. So that's what I do before I even really plan any of my lessons, is I really get that sequence of lessons, how I want them, and start thinking about how everything is going to spiral together to get to that objective. So I'm really excited to continue sharing this process with you. And if you have any questions, definitely drop them in those comments down below. Let me know what you're thinking. Again, this is supposed to be a conversation, a community, and I'd love to know what's your approach to lesson planning whole units, planning single lessons. So let's keep this going. And remember, the most important part of planning any lesson is to stay foolish, y'all.